Um, yeah, today I'll discuss some of the best expat cities. I'll mostly just focus on ones that I've been to, but I think that maybe some of you are wondering where I've traveled to and what's kind of stuck out. Um, as far as where I'll start, I guess I'll just start with Southeast Asia, and I think the preeminent, at least one of the expat cities in the world, of course, Bangkok and Thailand. Hey, we got a viewer. Good to see you. And I think that, to get into some of the reasoning here behind it, I think economics, I mean, in Bangkok, a lot of value for your money, in my opinion. Two is it's really easy to fly into Bangkok from most, major cities in the US and in Europe, I think. For me, it's coming from San Francisco. I'm mostly looking at layovers in like either Singapore, um, Taipei, or um, there's a few other choices, but I'd say, when it comes to um, value, it's just incredible there. Like what you get for what you're paying is generally very good. I will say that the city center has gotten quite a bit more expensive than what has been historically. So if you're somebody that um, you're more budget oriented, I think it's worthwhile to look on in some of the outer neighborhoods that may not have a train stop, or um, it may not have as much uh, sort of infrastructure, but you can get good deals. Like I paid, I'm sure the prices have come down, but the last time I was in Bangkok a couple of years ago, I think I paid like 80 bucks a week or so, maybe 100 bucks a week for a studio, a furnished studio, and that was really nice. And now that was outside the city center a fair ways, but I thought it was good value. Um, why else is it popular? I would say nightlife. During normal times when it's not there's not a pandemic going on, that then there's it's well known for being like having a lot of uh, dance clubs and music venues, bars, entertainment. Of course, I think that's somewhat muted, but eventually it'll come back. I think it's always a popular nightlife city for my lifetime anyway. I would also say um, dining. I think some people think of Thailand as mostly having Thai food, which is amazing. I love Thai food, but it's not just about the Thai food. In Bangkok, you can have food from all over the world. I've looked up a number of different cuisines and was surprised somebody is serving them up. And Bangkok, of course, is like 17, 18 million people in the area. So there's certainly an audience and a market, I think, there for a lot of these things. Hey, Tony, good to see you. How are you doing today? I'm just chatting about some of my favorite expat cities and mostly focusing on ones that I've been to. And I think that yeah, it's just helpful for me to share with the audience some of the places that are on my mind, and sort of a list format, maybe doing a little bit more digging into those cities. I'd say another aspect of Bangkok, and this maybe seems somewhat obvious to people that have been to Southeast Asia, but compared to like parts of Latin America or Europe, it's pretty warm or hot year round. So there's places I went in Latin America that were cold, and of course I've heard about Scandinavian countries, even the UK in the winter. I've heard can be quite cold and dreary. And then different than Bangkok, where it's generally. Oh, thank you, Tony. I appreciate that. Yeah, Cusco is fantastic. I love Cusco. I'll definitely get into Latin America after I talk about a bit about some of the Southeast Asian cities, because Latin America is incredible, and Ecuador is high on my list for Latin America. I've been kind of pricing out flights and just having a hard time deciding between going to America and back to Southeast Asia for my next trip. Um, for fun, I think Southeast Asia, like at least in some of the bigger cities, I feel like it does feel like more different. If we're looking at just like an experience that's different from my day-to-day experience, Latin America feels more like the US versus Asia feeling quite a bit different. And so that's another thing that I love about Asia is it just feels like such a shock, like a culture shock when you get there. Even though I've been multiple times, I know I'll feel it again next time I go just because it's when you get off the plane there, it's like you feel like you're in another planet. Um, but let's see. So yeah, I talked a bit about Bangkok. Um, Another city, you know, a lot of people, don't like it, but one city I'm a fan of is Phnom Penh. It reminds me a lot of New Orleans in Louisiana in the US. It's got that kind of French style architecture. It has that river town kind of vibe, edgy, kind of seedy in parts. Um, a lot of, and really surprisingly in my mind, a little bit more accessible in some cases in Bangkok as far as nightlife. And the reason I say that is there it did seem like there was a higher concentration of English speaking expats in the sort of urban neighborhoods in Bangkok or in Phnom Penh, whereas I feel like in Bangkok the expats are more spread out. You're just as likely to see expats in like Chiang Mai or Phuket, where in Cambodia it seems like a lot of people are focused in the capital city. And it was interesting to kind of have that experience. I also timed the weather perfectly where it was just really mild, not too hot, and I got to meet a lot of cool people. I think because it's more densely concentrated in a few neighborhoods, at least for expats, that it's just easier to run into people. Whereas in Bangkok, I definitely had to coordinate with my friends that live there because they live all over the city, and in some cases they're an hour and a half away from the city center. Where in Phnom Penh, all of my friends seemed like were at maximum 20 minutes away, even the ones that lived on the outskirts of the city. So that was pretty cool. Uh, Cebu, another big highlight. I really liked Cebu. It felt the closest, it felt the most familiar out of anywhere I went in Asia, probably because I heavy Americans with people and I can connect with people and you can make jokes and people understand. You can run American sports, people get it. Uh, I think culturally there's a lot of influence there too. Like people are really warm and friendly in the Philippines. But yeah, I'll dive into Latin America just a bit because I know Tony was here. And I'd like to chat about that. Cusco, like the way it appeals to me is that it's a place that, in my opinion, has been a really cool place to live for a really long time, and you get kind of that compounding effect where it's a comfortable atmosphere. It's very convenient to get around town. It's not too big. It feels so like everybody that's there really wants to be there. At least as far as like the expats, you don't. In my experience, I didn't. Where you do run into, sadly, a lot of expats that are unhappy with it. I can't exactly put my finger on why. I'll say it seems to make it really easy for expats to stay for a long time without having to, um, without having to jump through as many hoops. Like everybody I talked to said, it's super easy for them to extend their visas, and the local government seems to support that without much friction. And so that is different than parts of Southeast Asia where it's very difficult to extend your visa. You're having to pay a lot of money in some cases. You're having to jump through all these hoops, and some expats feel like I'm just not being welcomed. Where I didn't get that impression in Peru at all. I got the impression if you're willing to follow the law and pay a bit periodically, that they're willing to have you for a long time. I met people living there for years just on tourist visas and didn't seem to have any issue. I think that Peru likes the tourism. They like people coming to spend money, and they want to facilitate that as much as possible. Cusco, the only drawback of Cusco, if I had to put one drawback, and this is ironic, but it is extremely touristy. So it's not a place that you're going to go and blend into local neighborhoods or like find a far away spot, and it's going to be your kind of island of things. If you want, island of peace, if you want to go to the Cusco city center on a regular basis for groceries or hardware store, maybe you need a motorbike repair, you're going to get, bugged by people selling various things. It's really sad, but a lot of people in Peru struggle financially, especially outside of the capital. And so that's a way that they've found to be able to make money is to sell things to tourists. So uh, if you're somebody that you absolutely, yeah, absolutely. Tony is chiming in saying Plaza de Armas is overwhelmingly dominated by tourism. It's true. I mean, I lived in Cusco for several months, and every single time, even up until I left, if I walked through Plaza de Armas, um, I would get bugged by people selling stuff, and I can pass for Latinos, so in a lot of places I can avoid that. But there, they could just see by my style, I'm not dressed like a local. My hairstyle, etc., is not exactly local. I would say, especially having a beard. I think a lot of people, men in Latin America, shave. They definitely felt like, hey, this guy's got some money for us, and I don't like to buy souvenirs anyway, just because I don't really have space to put them anywhere, and um, it's just really not my thing. I'm there more for the experience. So it is kind of tough when these people want to sell you something that is possibly a really cool thing, whether it be like alpaca clothing or some kind of toy or figurine, whatever it may be. For me, I'm mostly there looking for experiences like visiting, uh, doing various hikes, visiting like Pisac, various places in the Sacred Valley. Um, and that can come up a little bit too if you notice an area where they're doing a lot of shuttles. They will like engage and shout at you and like, hey, come on, get on the shuttle. And for me living in Cusco for several months, it wasn't often that I wanted to jump on a shuttle. Often I just needed to like walk by there to get to where I needed to go. And of course, this was like spring 2021. So the tourism industry was especially devastated at that point. But um, they would have made more money off me if they just like offered me some food or something. I found, people are going to need to eat regardless of what happens. So there were restaurants that were suffering a lot, but some, as tourism started to creep back up, seemed to be, getting more customers. And I did my best to support a lot of the local businesses. Tried to avoid supporting like the pizza franchises you're probably familiar with. Yeah, it's weird, but like I went to the mall in Cusco, Hyper Mall, and they had a Chili's, very popular American chain. They also had Popeye's Fried Chicken, another really popular American fried chicken chain, and I think they had Domino's Pizza, and so, or maybe I think it was Papa John's. Papa John's is very popular in Peru, but for me, like as much as I could help it, and it's easy there. The food there is so good. It was easy for me to elect to support local restaurants, but it's Cusco is actually also really economical. A lot of people told me Peru would be much more expensive than Colombia, but I didn't find that to be the case. In fact, Lima was expensive. I will say Lima did seem pricey at times, but Cusco didn't feel that way. Cusco felt much cheaper than Colombia, where I think like street food meals in when I was Tony says when I was there many years ago, there were no North American chains malls in Cusco. Yeah, I imagine like it must have felt especially ancient. I think that it's uh, it's definitely a place that is at the crossroads of tradition and history and the modern. One young woman I dated, she, I mean, I think she was 21 or 22, and she had a brand new iPhone. She had like the iPhone Pro Max, latest edition, probably 13, $1,400 phone. And that was surprising to me because you go to a place like Cusco that's kind of associated with ancient traditions and doing a lot of things by hand, the old fashioned way. And yet, some of these young people in Peru are really hustling hard and they want to adopt a lot of these Western cultures. In her case, she had a pop up restaurant in her mom's restaurant, and she also had some other business ventures. Hi, Chris. How's it going? Just talking a bit about Peru. Um, and I'd love to go back, but yeah, Tony, feel free to share anything on Cusco. It's such a cool. Oh, wow, nice. How is it, Chris? Please share on your experiences in Cusco. I'm missing it a lot. I miss my friends there, and I have a buddy from Venezuela that lives there with his girlfriend, and they're like, "Man, you gotta come down, like crash on our couch and enjoy it." So um, I wish I just wasn't so busy with work. I feel like I'm finally starting to make a lot of progress in my career and trying to make as much headwind as I can with it. How long is the bus ride? I'm sorry to hear you got COVID. That sucks. I've heard it's like 16 hours from Lima to Cusco. I'm not sure. Maybe it's 10 hours from Lima to Arequipa and then maybe another 10 to Cusco. Kind of curious to hear about your experiences with the bus. The flight is incredible. The views from the flight from Cusco to Lima are absolutely stunning. You're flying over all these mountains and like it does feel a little sketch just because the mountains are so tall. But the pilots are great, and my flights in Peru went fine. I'd like to check out Iquitos next time. Of course, that'll have to be a non working trip because I've heard internet is terrible in Iquitos. 6 day trip. Oh, wow, you got to see Huacachina, Paracas, and Arequipa. That's incredible. Yeah, that's incredible that you had the 6 day journey and you got to see so much. I felt like I kind of stuck to Lima and Cusco, but you really got to see a lot and have a really good experience. How is Cusco? Like I've heard there's some protesting that the tourists are being limited from taking the train to Machu Picchu, and a lot of people are probably have their money locked in some of these tour agencies. Is that getting resolved, or is there any headway on that? That's awesome. I'm glad to hear it's calm. It may be like in like Calientes or like uh, closer to the destination. Oh, nice. Which neighborhood are you staying in? Are you in San Blas? Are you outside of San Blas? For those who are watching this later and may not be familiar, San Blas is kind of the city center of Cusco and probably the most popular neighborhood for tourists just because it's very convenient to Plaza de Armas and a lot of really good restaurants, hotels, a little bit of nightlife. I stayed in Plaza de Armas for my first week or so. Then I stayed. Uh, let me. I'm trying to think of the name. Just pull up a map here. Hmm. Just waiting for Google Maps to load. So I stayed kind of like near Plaza Tupac Amaru, um, El Ovalo. Let's see. Oh, the second area I stayed was basically near or right next to San Juan del Cilio, Silo, um, which is neighboring San Blas. Um, oh, cool! You're in El Ovalo. Yeah, I'm familiar. So I stayed not too far from there, and then another neighborhood I stayed in was the Santiago neighborhood, and this is kind of in the southwestern uh, corner of Cusco, and it's a beautiful neighborhood. It's really gorgeous. It's near a really cool sort of farmers market. I think the farmers market is in San Isidro, which is not the Lima San Isidro. It's different. Um, hey Ron, how's it going? We're talking to one of our viewers about Cusco. He has recently arrived in Cusco, and yeah, Chris is just sharing when you're doing a road trip. Well, I did just do a little bit of a road trip last weekend. So I drove out to Reno, Nevada, and I saw one of my buddies, Clinton, from high school. That was really cool. I hadn't seen Clinton in about a year, um, and that was fun. I was doing some looking at houses and just kind of scoping out uh, some homes, but I didn't really. I don't know. I wasn't totally sold on it. So that was about a 5 hour trip each way through the mountains, and I did stop off in kind of near Tahoe and enjoy the fresh air, and it's gorgeous up there. It's super gorgeous. Um, I don't know. I'm hoping I'm not counting on it. I'm hoping gas prices come down a bit, or maybe I'll swap to hybrid because it's painful to do a road trip at $5 a gallon. Clayton Homes. I'm not familiar, Ron. Can you share a bit more about Clayton Homes? I think that as far as like places to live, I think I'm gonna look at Washington State just because I think it's a good combination of uh, electric. Hmm. Oh, I see. Cheaper electricity. Thing I'd recommend, Chris, while you're in Cusco to check out is oh, electric car. I see. I'd recommend checking out Garwal if you like Indian food. Garwal is really really good, and tell them that Alex sent you, and yeah, that you're looking forward to it. If you like Indian food, you may not. Yeah, electric car does seem cheaper when you look at the gas prices. Like gas has gone up a lot. And okay, I'll definitely list out some more because there's so much good food in Cusco, and that city just punches far above its population in terms of good restaurants. Sure. Let's see here. Um, for some reason, it's not going to let me. We might throw it in the comments actually after the stream is over. It's not letting me type out a message, Chris, but I can definitely make some suggestions. I think that Thai restaurant you're talking about should be really really good. What kind of electric car are you thinking about getting, Ron? I think the Teslas look really, really cool, but it's out of my price range for now. But I'm working really hard, so it may be, it may be within my price range in a few years. Although I will say, as much as I want an electric vehicle, I'm hoping in your time span that I can kind of go abroad full time, and um, it has forced me to try to like come to terms with living a kind of a cheap lifestyle, or a pretty thrifty lifestyle. And yeah, I think it'll be worth it in the long term, even though it definitely involves sacrifice and patience, and going without some luxury sometimes. I think it'll be really fulfilling to be able to explore the world, and not have the chain of coming back home. Guam, I've heard a lot of good things about Guam, and a lot of people, I think, especially service members or former service members, are able to go there for medical treatment. Now, that doesn't apply to me, but I think there's something to be said about kind of a more developed or modernized sort of place that's easily accessible from Asia. Like, I'm really looking closely at the Philippines and Thailand. I go back and forth on them. On one hand, the Philippines has English. Um, that's just hard to beat. Canada and Alaska, that's really cool. If you go to Canada, maybe you'll be able to link with Mr. Darcy. He lives in Canada. Um, I personally haven't been to Alaska, but that that's got to be an incredible trip. It looks absolutely beautiful. I know my grandparents used to really love to go to Alaska to go fishing. It seems really remote too. Like, yeah, really incredible. I guess I'm maybe a little bit afraid of the super freezing weather, and so countries like Peru um, are a bit more appealing. Also, Thailand and of course Southeast Asia, but yeah, really, really a lot of great places. When are you thinking about traveling next, Mr. Ron? Uh, Ron, so no, so I'm actually in the hole. You have to hit 1,000 subscribers to monetize. And unfortunately, with my full-time job, I don't have as much time to put into YouTube as I'd like, and I think that it I think it's going to become more of a thing when I have the finances to move abroad full time, and I have uh, dividend income and property rental income that sort of pay my bills, right? So, like, even though I'd love to go abroad now, I have a limited amount of time before I run out of finances. Obviously, I don't want to leave my job. Um, so that's kind of the challenge there, is like, as much as I want to go full time on YouTube and make lots and lots of videos, it's really, really complex and takes a lot of time, way more than I thought when I initially got into it. So that's kind of why there hasn't been a ton of content coming for me, and why it will, while I'll struggle to be as consistent with it until I hit that, get my finances in the right place. I'm actually like in the red just because of camera equipment and stuff like that. Yeah, Garwal is incredible. I'm glad you found it. I did try alpaca meat. I felt like it was kind of overrated. Like, it wasn't bad, but I guess I'm used to steak, and I'm used to fish, and so um, I think it's worth a shot. I think it's worth trying. I'll say that, if you've had really good steak in a Western country, it may be a bit underwhelming. Um, I didn't try the cuy, the guinea pig. I didn't try that. That wasn't really interesting to me, and I think the trout is really a highlight. They call it trucha, and it's like they catch it in the mountain streams, and it's really tasty. Um, I'd say if you want some like really cheap but good local restaurants, there's some like back streets in Santiago neighborhood that, and especially near, there's this like, I'm trying to think of the name of it. I think it's Ovalo de Pachacutec. Near there, there's like some really, really good restaurants where you can have a sort of fixed menu for $1.50 for lunch, $2 equivalent, and it's incredible. Let's see. Ron asked, "Are you IT?" I technically am not an IT person, but I do work in tech sales. So I work in the financial technology industry. So I work for a business that basically is involved in modern money movement, and basically we're uh, we're helping businesses to um, develop. I don't want to be too specific, just to protect like my own kind of safety for whoever may watch it. But we're providing for financial services, and it's really exciting. I really like it. I like all the people I work with. I'm making more money than I've ever made before in my life, and that's another big reason why like I'm afraid to focus on YouTube full time, when uh, I can. I have a lot of potential, I think, at this company to make good money and really stack a lot of investments, and push myself along really far toward my goal. Salesforce still strong. I heard they're laying off. Yeah, Salesforce, like I have mixed feelings on them. Um, I don't want to. I don't want to like talk bad about people that work there that I've never met or worked with from there, but I've worked with some kind of jerks from Salesforce, not at my current company. I want to be clear about that. I think at least one person I work with worked at Salesforce. That person's awesome, easy to go get along with, really professional. Of course, Salesforce is such a big company, um, that it's you can't make generalizations. But I did work with a few people that came from there in a previous role that gave me really just a bad impression. Like it's the sales organization of tech sales, so it's like sales squared, where they can just be really aggressive, and I think, in my opinion, a little too pushy. Just because with tech sales, like you have to do a lot of traditional sales stuff, but you have to also respect that you're working with busy professionals. And I think some tech sales people get it in their mind that they can like be super demanding and not understanding the person they're working with's time is super valuable. And they have a lot of rare skills that they put a lot of time into developing. And even if you want to make the sale, you have to respect that they are a person who's really in demand. And there's a lot of people that want to sell them something, and a lot of people that know that this person has a big budget just by working in a company of a certain size. So, um, yeah, I could see them doing layoffs because they spent $1 billion on this building in downtown San Francisco, and now they're turning around and leasing a good chunk of it. Um, I felt like even when it was built, I was like, I don't know, like this. I get it, it's a trophy of sorts, a trophy building in the world's most expensive city, certainly one of the most expensive American cities. But uh, it's they're in a business that's increasingly remote, and they had to basically close it like not very like within a year, I think, of opening the doors due to the pandemic. And so I just personally feel like um, that money could have perhaps been invested in another way. So it also speaks to the longevity. I know they're having Dreamforce in I think about a month. Dreamforce is Salesforce's really big conference where they kind of show off their products, and they um, kind of educate. They're able to educate people on their tools, and I think it's super super awesome software. Like I definitely can appreciate because I use it a lot in every that I've had, information and providing context to deals really quickly. I've heard SF is closing a lot of stores. Is a lot of people have left San Francisco, so SF has really not rebounded as well as some other major cities. So like even New York City, or where I'm from, Nashville, uh, they've made a strong recovery from the pandemic. They've done a lot of things to spur business growth and businesses reopening. They've gotten various businesses on board, but the city of San Francisco is having a really hard time with that. They're trying to convince these tech businesses to get their people back in the office, but these tech people are super high paid, and there's a ton of demand for their skills. So you see them say, "Oh, we're going to get these people back in," but it's very easy for these people to go apply a job And it's common in the tech field to leave a company every 2 to 3 years. So they're trying to get people back in to come downtown and spend money, but they're offering people an area that does have crime issues. It's you know it's a major city, and all major American cities right now are dealing with issues of people having lost their jobs, people unfortunately turning to substance abuse when it comes to emotional hardship. You're also seeing rents go up in a lot of cities, and San Francisco's been unaffordable. So even if rents were to go up, it would still be super unaffordable. It is a city that's very tolerant. Uh, I think at times the city does tolerate things it shouldn't. Um, but I think it's also important to keep in mind that, there's a lot to be said about a tolerant atmosphere to attract the best and the brightest minds. People who work in the technology industry, um, it's not like Hollywood or um, the music industry where you can throw enough money at a certain kind of group or business and it works out. Tech is very meritocratic. So it attracts a lot of different people from a lot of different backgrounds that have really solid skills, and they want to live in a place where they're not going to be judged, because I think a lot of tech people like me especially grew up as nerds and kind of got picked on for being nerdy and pushed around for being nerdy. And um, it's San Francisco's an open-minded place in many ways, even with all the harsh criticisms from the news, such that people that are kind of the oddball can go there and nobody's going to look at them twice. Nobody's going to ask them about their ethnic background. A lot of things that you deal with in other cities that aren't as sort of meritocratic just don't exist there. In San Francisco, if you have a good tech product, chances are you can find an audience, you can talk to people about it. Nobody's going to care if you're in the LGBT community. Nobody's going to care if you're of mixed ethnicity. Nobody's going to care if you have a weird haircut or something like that. It's very much about, like, you know the best, and the best of whatever it is. And so it does have some issues where, because there's been so much excess wealth created in San Francisco, part of that does get spent on services that are lacking in other parts of the country. There's mental health services, physical health services, there's job services, there's all these resources that exist there. And so it does attract a lot of people that are down and out and having a tough time, myself included. I feel like the city took me in when I was going through a tough time in my life, not having family back home. I don't know if I've talked to you about this, Mr. Ron, but I lost my parents at a young age. So I never really fit in where I'm from. I never really found a solid group that kind of took me in as one of their own. And, um, you know, I found individual friends to be really, really great, but it's just hard for me to relate to people as much where I'm from. And uh, San Francisco is not like that. It's very easy for me to find like-minded people. It's very easy for me to find people with whom I share values. Um, but yeah, good to see you, Mr. Darcy. Thank you. I'm glad you're getting to enjoy the stream, and hope you're doing well. But yeah, I mean, I'm not gonna say San Francisco is perfect, but for me, it's been a really wonderful opportunity, and I love too that it's a gateway to a lot of different places. So if I want to fly to another country, it's so easy to fly from San Francisco to Europe or to Asia, and the prices are coming down. I've been just kind of looking at flight prices to Bangkok. And Ron, do I have time for Jim? Um, I I do, and my company even reimburses a membership, so they'll reimburse me if I get a membership. My only concern is I'm thinking about moving from San Francisco up to Washington, and I'm afraid to get into a year-long commitment when I might have to pay some silly fee to get out of it in 6 months. I do walk a lot in San Francisco. Sometimes I'll walk for like even 10 or 12 miles in one day, and that tends to be pretty good exercise. There are free gyms in the city where you don't have to pay, you don't have to show any ID or anything. You just show up and you can work out. So that's something I like to do sometimes. It's a little bit out of the way, but if I'm going to be in a neighborhood that has one of those gyms, getting groceries or getting dinner or meeting up with a friend, then it's kind of a nice combo thing to do where I go to the city and get a workout and lift weights, and then get groceries because there's some great discount grocers in San Francisco too. Like the city appeals to really well-to-do people and really poor people, and I wouldn't say I'm extremely poor, but I would definitely say I'm on the lower end of the economic spectrum. And so for me, being able to fill up my backpack with day old fruit, you know, for $10 is really great. Yeah, I wish I had joined the military, Mr. Ron. I probably should have done that. Um, there's a lot of circumstances that kind of went into that not working out. Um, Talking a little bit about personal stuff, but kind of growing up, like my grandma was a narcissist, and she had me on probation for arguing with her, and so I was always worried if I tried to get in the military, all the that the juvenile stuff would show up. I never got caught with any bad stuff. I never drank and drove. I never broke the curfew. She just wanted a way to control me, and so she did it through the legal system. So I was worried if I tried to get in the military, they're going to ask me, why were you arguing with your grandma, basically, and it might prevent me from having the career I wanted. I really lucked out with tech, by the way. It's what my grandfather wanted. Really, um, that's really yeah. My grandfather was in the military, and he he made it to E9 in the army, and he could have become an officer, but he told my grandma he didn't want to be the lowest officer on the totem pole. I don't really agree with that logic. I feel like it's probably a good idea if you can get the opportunity to try to do that. And who knows, maybe I'll join. I mean, I think um, I'm I'm 29, and so I think that the Air Force and the Army are still open, and the Marines are still open. But we'll see. It depends on how my tech career goes. Who knows? Maybe the tech business will really slow down, and there'll be fewer opportunities, and I'll need an alternative kind of career path. Certainly, I think that the military serves a great purpose. I'm grateful to you, and thank you for your service to all military members, because they make a really big sacrifice, and it's hard on it's yeah, it's not an easy life, and um, I think there's a lot of, philosophically speaking, a lot of things that I can appreciate about any military that I speak to. I think that also it's a great thing for discipline. I think more young people in America, and they got the discipline to pursue. Yeah, he ended up becoming law enforcement after retiring from the military. I think precisely because he could keep his military benefits and then also get the law enforcement salary. But yeah, I think with law enforcement, it's the same thing. Like, I don't always agree with uh, the way that law enforcement in the U.S. handles situations. I also often think they're put in lose lose situations where they can't really win. If they do their job, they're going to have one group of people angry at them. If they don't do their job, they're going to have a different group of people angry. An ethnic minority without any family. It's ironic because I very oppositional because I've seen how bad police can be and how bad they can get and how oppressive and frustrating they can be. On the other hand, I'm not a person that has all these resources to vend myself from criminal, right? So like, I'm not in a position where I can just to go and afford all this personal safety equipment, and I can afford to walk around in a bulletproof vest, and I can afford to, um, you know, live in a senior. It's a non-issue. I have, I'm a working class dude, so For somebody like me, I really do have to rely on and trust in public service, rely on various government services because I can't do them for myself. They're just not within my budget. Same with firefighters. Like I can't afford high to install high end firefighting equipment and just anytime something bad happens, be able to use it. And so that's something that I do think like is right in line with law enforcement. I think the ultimate consequence of bots, I think they'll probably be replaced by AI, just because it's in the long term, it's going to be a situation where um, people are not going to want the liability of being a police officer, and the general public is going to be more and more distrustful as I think the powers that be um, misuse police powers to um, I don't know. I definitely think there's some really serious issues that um, are perhaps more complex than what I have time for to discuss. Uh, yeah, I find my job's much less stressful, and you know, it's uh, it's not super complex, and it is complex, but it's not. There's a learning curve. I feel like it's not physically complex. I feel like being a fireman, you have to do a lot of physically complicated stuff like trying to put out fires. With me, most of the complexities in my mind and communicating. But yeah, I think we'll probably wrap up here in about 10, 12 minutes or so. But yeah, did anybody have any questions or thoughts? I'd love to transfer to Singapore, and I may be able to do that. I'm not sure. I'm going to have to talk to um, my long-term goal. So my long-term goal would be to move to Southeast Asia, maybe get married and start a family. I'm not sure about how if I want to commit to that or not. Um, Really finding a partner there, like a life partner, and kind of pursuing like a more, I don't know, like a more fulfilling life. I like my job, but um, there's the satisfaction a person can have from their job cannot match the satisfaction a person can have from a really truly wonderful personal relationship with a significant other. I think that most people work because it's a necessity, and because it facilitates a good personal life and a good private life. Uh, and yeah, so I would say that's a big step is just moving to Southeast Asia. That's really the biggest goal that I have, and getting to a point where I can live over there in perpetuity and not worry about bills and not worry about um, how I'm going to pay for various things. Uh, in like I said, in perpetuity. So a situation where it's not I'm going to move to Southeast Asia for um, 2 years and then come back and start all over again. I want to go over there and say 5 to 10 years and basically be able to say I'm not coming back to America um, for a long time, and only because I want to and it makes sense due to planning, and not because I have to because I ran out of money or something bad happened. And I think living over there, being in a relationship, whether it be a Filipina or a woman from a different Southeast Asian country, and just kind of pursuing that relationship and getting to know somebody and spending time with a nice lady that's just really kind and caring and supportive and will help take care of me and like look after my well-being, help me do various things I can improve their life. And we're not just like scraping by and struggling to get ahead. but that we can, enjoy things that they might not. Yeah, it's Ron. That's easier said than done. I've made a lot of dumb mistakes when it comes to women. um, yeah, so probably some of my biggest mistakes in life have been in relationships with women, and yeah, it's tough. It's hard to manage. No, yeah, I had to break it off. I was kind of talking to and seeing this Thai woman, and I broke it off with her because of that. She just wanted to get an attitude and argue a lot, and I kind of told her like I'm happy by myself. I don't. I'd rather be single and not argue with anybody on a regular basis than be able to say I'm in a relationship, but putting up with just constant disagreement, constant argument. We just perceive things in an extremely different way. She's very much a security oriented person, and I am very much a freedom oriented person. And she'd ask things that are, in my opinion, not yeah, not out of curiosity, but trying to confirm that I'm doing what I'm supposed to be doing. So she asked me if I've been vaccinated. I have been vaccinated. I'll say on the stream I've taken the vaccine. Well, then that's not enough. Now she's asking what was the date and what kind, and just pushing me for this information that um, I that, and then just that would apply to all kinds of things, and wanting to argue with me if I didn't give her a sufficient response and if I didn't feel like talking about it. And it's not about secrets or not secrets. It's about priorities. And like if her priority in a relationship is to um, get me to comply, that's not a healthy relationship. I don't want a relationship in which the goal of my partner is to make me comply with whatever they want to do or whatever they're demanding. For me, relationship is supposed to be a mutually beneficial thing, something where I enjoy their company, they enjoy my company, and not something where you can kind of just get certain things out of it, like a need for control. The thing that we're going back and forth on is Asian cultures, and I speak for this as an Asian American person. I was raised by my grandmother from Japan, often push what I call an internal locus of control. And that's this idea that of personal responsibility. In a lot of American culture, conservative Western cultures, they have this idea of personal responsibility. And so, yeah, exactly. It should be fun and stress free. My current job is just like that, fun and stress free. It's the only stressful thing about my job. Sometimes I have to get up early. That's not really a big deal. That's probably most people that work a professional job have to get up early. So, um, but yeah, it was just, and the big thing I think too is just yeah, it just seemed like there was not a lot of depth there, and that most of our conversations were like, she'd always bring up politics and like, just a lot of stuff that like is miserable to talk about. And I wanted to disagree a lot. It's like, look, if we're going to argue, if I wanted to argue all the time, I would I wouldn't be I there's no benefit there, basically. Like if you're talking to somebody that's halfway around the world, and that time is just spent in conflict, like there's I don't know, it was just not going in the right direction. And I felt like it was going to be more of that, and I didn't want to waste her time or waste my time. And I'm glad I broke it off, just because it was really frustrating. And I think some of that too is language barrier. I mean, um, English. I'm a native English speaker, and she's trying to learn English as a second language, and so there's just miscommunication there. Where I think it is a point in the direction of the Philippines, as far as like Philippines English is common, and it's it's a situation where you don't have that language barrier. You're not trying to kind of translate things like that as much. Um, so that's why I don't know. I am thinking about going to Manila on my next trip to Southeast Asia. I go back and forth on it. I wish I could go do 4 months again. That was a freaking blast. At least a month, but I can't take a month off work. That's just too much time. And so I'm thinking more like a couple of weeks. And I'm just trying to decide like, do I want to go to Bangkok or Manila or um, yeah, it's Indonesia. I went to Malaysia and I loved Malaysia. It was wonderful. I haven't been to Indonesia, um, but Malaysia was really, really cool. And I liked Singapore a lot as well. Singapore could be pricey, really, really clean, really efficient, easy to get around. Uh, Although I will say the bus was late and kind of slow, and I did have to buy another ticket to Thailand because I missed my flight. So maybe I should have taken an Uber or Grab taxi. I probably should have taken a Grab taxi that day. Malaysia is awesome. I think Malaysia is like this super underrated hidden gem. Especially like if you're Western and you speak English, like I do. It's everybody seemed to speak English in Malaysia, and or a lot of people. I'd say a lot of people spoke English in Malaysia. Also, um, for me, I like steak, and there's a sizable population there that eats halal, which is of course in line with Islam, and so you can get incredible steaks in Malaysia for a really good price. And beef skewers. I think they import a lot of their beef from Australia, and I really enjoy eating that. Australia and New Zealand are also like incredible choices. Um, of course, like they are pretty far from here in the U.S. and they can be pricey, but I think that bringing it, maybe like doing a road trip in Australia or like one of the islands in New Zealand would be incredible. How is that, Ron? How is Bahrain? So did you fast? I'm curious about that. If you participated in fasting. Wow, humid. Interesting. I'm gonna pull up Bahrain on it's in the Persian Gulf. Wow. So that's wild. A lot of people, I think they think of Persian Gulf countries as like more desert like, and to hear it's humid is really, really interesting. Oh, I like fasting a lot. I really I find it's really great for my energy levels. It makes me feel better. It moderates my weight. I think my buddy Matt's supposed to go to Dubai, or he may have been recently. Yeah, I've heard Dubai is super, super pricey. That you've got to pay a lot for everything, and everything's super expensive. I've heard it's popular among the OFW community. A lot of Filipinas will go to Dubai to work because the wages are higher there than in the Philippines. But yeah, I'm gonna wrap up here. Feel free to share some last thoughts, Mr. Ron. I think I'm gonna jet and get some food just because I'm feeling pretty hungry now. Wow, women from Russia. That's got to be incredible to be able to meet and date women from all over the world. That's got to be really exciting. I've never been to Eastern Europe or Russia. Hopefully one day, maybe even next summer. Um, Feel free. Why don't you shoot me an email? Um, let's see. Um, I think it's in my about section.
Um, and yeah, and I'll send that to you, and yeah, that way we can keep in touch. But yeah, great to chat, and look forward to chatting again. Thank you everybody for participating this evening. I appreciate all the great questions, Mr. Ron. That's super helpful. And to anybody rewatching, yeah, subscribe if you haven't already, and that's always super helpful. Channel. We'll talk to you later. Bye.